Hello, my name is Sofin and today I watched The Gorge. Now, I would like to tell you about this new romance horror. Written by Zach Dean and directed by Scott Derrickson, this film stars Miles Teller, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Sigourney Weaver. Okay, the story is split into two major parts. The first part is about two former soldiers being sent to protect a mysterious gorge. There's a deep-seated mist that covers the middle and two towers, one on either side. The two soldiers, Levi, played by Teller, and Drasa, played by Joy, arrive in their towers and start setting up camp. After a while, they notice each other and start playing telescope telephone. They go through a few montages of them falling in long-distance love, and then eventually, while trying to meet, they start off the other story. The second part of the film is an action horror. Inside the gorge is a mysterious army of zombie-like plantmen. Every so often, they try to climb the walls of the gorge, and the couple has to take them out using gun placements and explosives. The second half of the film involves the couple making their way through the gorge and discovering the secret behind the monstrous men. Alright, it's a fairly straightforward and simple tale that tries to mix two genres, romance and horror. It does an okay job of both sections, but doesn't have anything to write home about. For positives, you have a story that's filled with excitement, a cast that's trying their best, and a soundtrack that goes way harder than it has any right to. Starting with the story. It's a romance horror, so there's a lot of variety here to enjoy. The first half of the movie is mostly a tryst that's filled with neat little interactions between Levi and Drasa. They're separated by a large distance, and they overcome it by repurposing their tools for communication. Watching them have fun together and comfort one another is a sappy way to watch them bond, but it does a good job of sticking the audience firmly in their corner. They also have a little teaser section of zombies about 40 minutes in so you don't forget the horror part of the story. After the love story finishes playing out, we see the characters thrust into danger. They start discovering the mystery behind the gorge, and a new antagonist appears from the shadows. This section is filled with jump scares, action in the form of combat with the Mistmen, and a little bit of horror from the monster designs. Next up, the cast is doing a solid job of their roles despite the situation. There aren't a lot of roles, and most of the screen time goes to the leads. Taylor-Joy and Teller do a great job with the romance sections, showing off a lot of chemistry together and creating likable characters that are easy to root for. Both are playing soldiers with PTSD that fall in love with each other. They don't get to build up much of a personality beyond competent fighters, but they manage to inject enough charm that you can forget about the shallow nature of their roles. Sigourney Weaver as the villain isn't given much to do, but does her usual boss lady trope. She's tough, but discerning enough to switch tactics when she isn't making progress. Sound-wise, the film is awesome. It's got original music and instrumentals, and uses both to maximum effect. The original music tends to be alt-rock pop music from the last 20 to 30 years and is mostly used in the context of the love story. The two characters listen to the music in-universe and it prompts them to dance and enjoy themselves. It comes in at the perfect time, adds a ton of flavor, and helps make the love story work. It also humanizes both of them in a very real way. Then the instrumentals come in during tense moments and moments of conflict. They heighten the atmosphere and make everything a little bit darker and more intense. They're a bit more generic, but do a good job of backing the story. Which brings me to the film's negatives, which spawn from the writing and the visuals. The story doesn't make a lick of sense, and only gets more confusing the longer it goes. There's all kinds of plot holes relating to the mystery in the gorge, and the main characters are given the world's biggest plot armor ever. One example is the Mistmen. They take random actions throughout the movie and never seem to have an actual goal, which means that sometimes they randomly keep the heroes alive when they have no reason to. The cast ends up suffering a bit from the writing too. There's lots of exciting moments, but there aren't many opportunities for the actors to express themselves in character. They're also pretty shallow, so they aren't doing anything difficult either. It's just two competent soldiers falling in love. There's no standout moments, there's no big monologues or emotional outbursts. It's just two people dating and surviving. Visually is where the film falls apart. It's a mostly CGI creation with a couple of actors on a soundstage. It's supposed to take place in two guard towers overlooking this mist-filled gorge. Instead of actually finding a neat location, they created one with practical effects and a lot of CGI. It leads to incredibly boring shots of the actors emoting while standing in place because they can't interact with anything around them. Then when the zombies come, we get even more CGI overload. The monsters are CGI, most of the explosions and destruction are CGI, and even most of the gorge ends ends up being recreated in CGI. The only real shots are of the actors pretending to shoot their guns. The action would have memorable moments if the CGI wasn't so low quality. It looks like a bad cartoon from the 2000s and doesn't mesh well with the real objects they try to overlay on it. Personally, I found myself into the concept but totally thrown by the execution. The actors are trying their damnedest and almost make it work, and the story meshes two genres together fairly well. They even did really well with the soundtrack. They just couldn't make the visual journey work at all. It looks like two people on a soundstage, and the monster parts are so different that it might as well be a different movie. They also bungled the answers part of the story and failed to differentiate it from the plethora of other monster stories that go down this exact same route. As for a rating, I'd give this film a 4 out of 10. It just wasn't an entertaining film as a whole, and the visual journey was as bad as that Wall movie. It's almost laughable at times. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye!